Meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. Alan Medlock still doing the baseball thing. So tonight we have joining us one of the newest MLB.com writers, as they've added quite a bit of talent over there. We've got Josh Jacobs joining us. Josh, how are you tonight?
I'm good, Daniel. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. Let's talk about this new gig. How did that come about and what's it been like for you so far?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I just checked my email one day and I had a kind of a interest email probing to see if and it didn't really tell me anything other than would you be interested in a conversation about Cardinals.com? And I was like, sure, I'd love to chat about that. And got on a call and kind of introduced myself and talked about what I've been doing for a while, and then didn't hear back for a few weeks. It was like, okay, I don't know what this is. And then originally, the original plan, they'd offered me to do road games, and so I would cover those remotely, which is definitely a really new and interesting way to do baseball coverage. And so I did that for the first couple weeks here, but now my role's kind of evolved more into MLB.com, which I think people are going to really appreciate. This is actually going to put boots on the ground for away games now. Especially now that there's just not as much coverage from some of the other outlets anymore. I think people will appreciate that there's another in person. And so I'll be doing 2 weekly columns on Cardinals.com where I can kind of just cover whatever topics I want within Cardinal Nation at the moment. I really did enjoy doing that game coverage to start. It was really fun and a stretching experience, and had a great team to work with there, and just blessed with the opportunity in general. And now I'm excited about the idea of being able to just kind of instead of react to what happened in the game that evening, I get to kind of just take the story wherever I want to. So yeah, but jumped on that. And like you said, Kyle Reese is on there, Brendan Schaefer's on there now too. So it's a fun crew.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You know, Schaefer doesn't listen, it's fine. Yeah, that's interesting. Do you know if are they doing like a dedicated person, or are they just gonna kinda tap the person that is already covering the the
Yeah,
opponent team?
that one I'm not sure. My guess is that it's not a dedicated person for every, like, I
Mhm.
don't think it's gonna be the same person for all the road games,
Yeah.
which is that's definitely different. I don't know if it will mean, and they might, I mean, this is kind of, they're figuring this part out kind of recently.
Mhm.
So that might evolve and change. My guess is that they probably are going to probably have like someone that freelance comes in and does that. So that, like, if it's like in Detroit, like that series, you'd still have the Tigers person do the Tigers and someone focus on the Cardinals, but they might ask someone to do double duty. Who knows? But at the very least, you'll still have someone with the eyes and ears there. Because for as much as it was like I loved being able to do it, like, yeah, I am limited when I'm not there
Right.
and not in the clubhouse. I'm able to ask the questions myself, kind of relying on either
Mhm.
what's being fed from other reporters out there. There's a few games where there's some MLB.com staff on site that fill other roles that were able to go down to the clubhouse and get me quotes and stuff too. So I'm very appreciative of
That's
them
cool.
because that allows me to but yeah. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that side of it. And now I think working on some of those columns will be really fun and probably fits more of my lane and fits more of what's probably I guess most helpful to Cardinal Nation's coverage wise. And then we'll see what they kind of end up doing. But there'll be boots on the ground in some capacity for Cardinals.com coverage on away games now.
That's cool. I didn't know, like, in the past, like, Jeff Jones has, as a stringer covered,
Yeah,
the opposing team maybe when they've come into town and for MLB, once or twice, filling in maybe for somebody. So maybe something of that nature, but,
true.
I was just trying to decide if we had actually added a beat writer to the group. Didn't doubt it, but, maybe some point in time, because it is interesting that, MLB cut back on their stuff, and then, The Athletic obviously has cut back on their stuff. We obviously are kind of blessed in St. Louis with all the people that work at the Dispatch, but, that's just one site and can be a difficult site to manage. So getting some more opportunities like you and Kyle and Brendan and others to give information and analysis on this team is important.
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously just big picture wise, we're really in a new era in landscape, or it feels like we're entering a new era in landscape when it comes to just media in general. And so how the industry evolves and changes, whether it's baseball coverage or other things, is going to be interesting to watch. And yeah, like you said, whether it's, and part of this too is like the unfortunate part where the Cardinals are at this year too, that I mean, I have no doubt that influenced why the Athletic didn't replace Katie Woo. um, and yeah, I can't speak to MLB.com's plans with that. Because I mean, I don't really know why they chose this route, but it was exciting.
Mhm.
Even in just some of the conversations they talked about, like obviously, like what Derek and Jeff and Katie and what John Denton's done and what all the great beat reporters have done is incredible coverage and necessary and vital for following a baseball team like the Cardinals. But they've also recognized that there's a lane, and people really appreciate, like, Katie and Derek's job isn't to tell you what they think; it's to tell you
Mhm.
facts.
Right.
And now they don't necessarily need a hot take clickbait artist on the site either, but it gives me the lane to be able to say, like, here's like an opinion, more of an opinion, or more of a take, I guess, on something rather than just spitting the facts out. And so that, I think that's kind of where I get to play a role into it a little bit too, is to kind of give, okay, here's what we're watching in the field, what we're hearing from the clubhouse, the state of the team. Here's what fans are probably wanting to talk about, in a way that I think, just to keep journalistic integrity, the Derek's of the world, Katie's of the world can't necessarily go down those routes because it's not what their job is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's a fine line even on MLB.com's site, right?
Hmm.
I mean, because if it's I mean, and I think you're right, when you get into the columns like you're writing now, it's a lot easier to do that versus, game coverage that's supposed to be
For sure.
probably a little bit more straight in line. Now, I will also say I feel like in this day and age where most everybody can watch a game, most everybody can, find the highlights or whatever the case may be, game stories are less important than they used to
Yeah.
be. Derek might come jump down my throat for that. I don't know, but I mean, obviously there's good stuff in those game stories because they're talking to the people afterwards and getting quotes and getting thoughts about how it happened. But getting into really the analysis of things is probably a little bit more of what people are looking for these days.
Yeah, for sure. And that's even one of the things that I was really appreciative when I jumped on, that they were like, "Hey, we don't want you to just recap the game. Like, they want to you tell the story, tell the main, like." So like when and I mean, and that's what Derek and Brendan's been doing for
Mhm.
MLB.com, and others have done before too. It's like, it's not about telling someone what they can easily find on Twitter or on YouTube if they just take two
Right.
seconds to go find the game clips. It's like, tell the story of how Jordan Walker's fourth home run in 5 games, like what, like dive into that storyline more than how the game played out. So even I feel like I gained a ton of respect. Not, I mean, I already had a ton of respect for
Mhm.
everyone in that, but like I was shooting some of my articles to like Katie or to like Bernie Miklasz, and was just like, "Hey, beat them up for me, like pick them apart, help me grow." And like they gave great feedback and it was awesome. But I told both of them, I was like, man, like the pressure that it feels like, where that first game where I filled in for Brendan, I had written like 3 or 4 different stories and then had to delete all, like, and just kept having to delete them because the game kept changing. And
Right.
it's like,
Right.
it's just like the pressure cooker that it is. And then let alone if they're in person, they're jumping down to the clubhouse trying to get quotes too, hit the deadline. It's a hard thing. And then it's hard to be a storyteller when you're trying to like keep track of a game and formulate all these thoughts and all these perspectives at once and put it all together. And it
Mhm.
took a lot. And so I had a blast doing it. Like, honestly, I did. It'd be cool if I get the opportunity to do something like that again in the future. But what I walked away the most with, like, man, the people who do this like day in and day out, they're incredible at their jobs, and it's not easy. And so I feel like sometimes people give a lot of flack to reporters for stuff, and man, it's a hard job. And I only got like I feel like I got the 50, 60, or the 40% version of it, and even that
Mhm.
was like, whoa, this is a lot.
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
be full-time boots on the ground it's a tough gig. And it's we've been, like you said, we're blessed, or we've been blessed in St. Louis, the amount of great writers we've had over the years, and usually the quantity of them at one time. It's unfortunate that the coverage is scaled back in general right now, but hopefully, as hopefully Heim Bloom turns this around and we get a little bit more investment for some of the outlets.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I don't. And I still think I know the Athletic has talked about, Rutherford has mentioned a couple times that they're still looking for a Cardinal writer there. Um, but I also think, this is I would love to see the St. Louis podcast Substack, alternate media, if you will, market compared to so many other teams, even bigger markets, because we have so many of these podcasts and writings and stuff that, I mean, yeah, its fan base. It may not be as informed as, people that are getting there right on the ground, but it's still coverage, and it's still, you know, you're getting to find out at least thoughts and opinions about the team. And we have so many people in this fan base that are so good at digging into the stats and the metrics and things like that. It is not an excuse for them not to have more coverage in the mainstream media, if you will. I hate to use that phrase because it feels loaded, um, but to have it kind of catch up a little bit with all these people that are out there is something.
Yeah, and too with that too, like I think you bring up a good point. Like I think, and you've seen that in some other markets a little bit more, like Andrew Wayne, who people know is the resident. I mean, he's with us at Dealin the Cards, but also is a Shohei Ohtani observer by big time. Talks about how, like,
Observer
I
is
mean,
is a very understated word, but yes.
borderlines on worshiper, but I'll go with observer for now. But he talks about, like, there's a lot of podcasts that get credentialed and get access by the Dodgers, and so it's like, okay, long term, like, it'll be interesting to see how progressive Major League Baseball gets with the kinds of media they allow into those spaces and have access, because it is very different than 10-15 years ago, where podcasts are a real thing now, and Substacks are a great way to get content out there. And there's so many different niches and lanes, and people want those. There's the people who want the very general coverage, they just want the facts, but most people want to, like, have a conversation about stuff. And so I think that's where, like, you and I fit into this, and Kyle and so many others, is that we get to, like, continue the narrative and the conversation with the fan base in a way that, again, that's not to take, I'm not at all taking away or saying what the beat reporters do is not important, but it's just like another flavor of it. And to me, they're not competing, they're serving different purposes. And so, but I think at the same time, it would be helpful for in the future for the likes of us, and like the Cardinals have done that already a little bit too, right? Where, like, we got to do that Ollie Marmol Zoom recently. They do the Blogger Day stuff. They've been trying to invite people to different events and things. Like, they're opening things up, which is awesome. And the more we're able to kind of have that access, which I know they can't let a million people do that, they don't have the time of day. But the ability, like, the more the access we're able to get, the more we're able to communicate to the fan base in a way that's appropriate to where the Cardinals are actually at too. And I think that's a huge thing, a valuable thing. So yeah, I'll be curious long term to see kind of where the media landscape evolves and shifts, and it should be interesting to follow.
It should be. I mean, and that's an interesting. You talk about the Dodgers credentialing some of the podcasts out there, but when I started this in 07, started writing and everything like that, and soon after, probably 09 or so, I started putting together a group of bloggers that were doing other teams, and was kind of discussing what their teams did for them. And at that time, I think the Mets had a regular conference call with their manager. It may have been the Giants that had a credential that rotated through the different blogs. And so, that was actually one of the reasons that I started pushing the Cardinals to have, something, whether it's Blogger Day or whatever it was. And that's what obviously it turned into. But it's interesting that, after a while that kind of faded away. So, will it come back? Will it be cyclical? Or is it an idea that, they want to keep an arm's length at? I think it's very, very much depends on the team. I think you're right. We've seen with a change in front office and in the fact that the Cardinals need better coverage right now, I guess, than they did when they were winning divisions and stuff like that, that it does feel like we're getting a few more opportunities and may have some more in the future.
Yeah, for sure. So, and again, I'm so appreciative of what the Cardinals have done for this. And again, I feel like any access is better than nothing. Like, and sorry, I'm not even like, that maybe sound like, oh, anything's great. It's like, no, seriously, like anything they offer, I'm like, man, this is incredible, and very appreciative of it. And so, and they've got a great PR team over there too. And a lot of the new and people who've been around for a little while in the front office, I feel like are just great individuals to connect with and are very willing to give their time when it's possible. And so it's very humbling too to think of like, man, they could be prioritizing a million different things right now, and yet they choose to invite us into it and see the value. And it doesn't mean they always agree with what we do, right? There's probably things they see where they're like, oh my gosh, but they understand the value it has to the fan base, and I just appreciate that they're continuing to find new ways to evolve us in it.
Absolutely. Does this MLB.com gig give you press box passes, or is that not quite that far along?
We'll see. I feel like I didn't, part of it was like, I mean, yeah, with me being on the covering the road games remotely, it was like there would be no reason to do that. It'd be really cool, and I would love the opportunity if it ends up coming up that if I need to fill in for Brendan for a home game or something, maybe I can make my way down and do that. Definitely haven't crossed that bridge or talked about it with them. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know if it will. I hope it would be awesome if it gets me some extra opportunities with that, but nothing that I'm aware of yet.
Yeah, I was in the press box one time, not covering. I was able to visit a long, long time ago, and just to be in there during a game is very weird, just because it's so quiet. And all this stuff's going on outside, and they're I'm sure they're talking to each other and all that, but it is a very serious place. So it's an interesting thing to be at. And obviously, you're getting this in large part because of the success of Dealin the Cards, which is running into what is this? I know you had a different name for it for a while, but is this third, fourth season for that?
Yeah, they started it in 2023. So yeah, 23, 24, fourth season. Yeah. And I jumped on with them at the end of the 2023 season. I was doing I was trying to do my own audio stuff and just realized it was really hard to keep up with. And I did not have the production background means to do things. And I also was, I mean, I still do, but I was writing at the time for Redbird Rants and overseeing that side. And so just between normal life, the website, trying to get a podcast off the ground was just tough. And so it kind of ended up working where I was a guest on their show a couple times and had good interactions with them. And they'd reached out, were like, hey, would you want to be a part of what we're doing? And I just kind of saw like, man, they had a good dynamic. It was fun. But then also like Andrew just nails the social media and the production side of things, and it loves doing it too. Like it's not a drag to him. And it allowed me the opportunity really just to show up and talk. And I don't handle anything, so I was like, you know what, I can manage that.
Exactly.
And so yeah, now we're going on our fourth season. Yeah, it's been a fun ride. Like I love writing and I love the audio space. Like I think they stretch different muscles for me and they allow me to do different things. Like it's harder to, like, no one really wants to sit and listen to someone spit out a bunch of facts on an audio or stats, I should say, on like
Right.
audio or video. So it allows like different types of conversation, but then I still love doing those deep dives and trying to, I don't know, like bring more awareness or coverage or thoughts to complicated topics or thing. Anyway, so I like being able to stretch both muscles. And but yeah, the Deal in the Card stuff has been super fun to grow with. And we recently expanded our team. We brought on Kareem Hawk like a year and a half ago, and he started that Birds on the Farm prospect show. And then now we have Aiden Gray and Tyler on for us, who kind of do the everyone knows Tyler as Redbird Farmhands, and they just do even more prospect coverage stuff on there. They've been doing a lot of draft coverage, which has been super fun. And so yeah, we kind of keep taking it where it goes and seeing what happens with it, but it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, and you've had your holiday live streams that have raised money for charity. That's been really pretty cool as well.
Yes. That I think that was Andrew's idea, if I remember right. Because I remember he was just like, yeah, it'd be really cool to find a way to give back. And we're just like, yeah. So I remember that first year, we're like, how do we do that? We're like, oh, let's do like a charity live stream. It's like, oh, that's cool. And then we just started messaging people. We're like, hey, would you be willing to do like a 10, 15, 20-minute time slot? And then like we were surprised because like almost everyone was like, yeah. And then so that first one came together where we had this like lineup of every 20 minutes we had a new guest on. And I don't even know how much money we raised that year. Probably not a lot. And last year, we had Brendan Donovan on, obviously, to host that with us, which was super cool. And we got to know him earlier in the year just through, he did an appearance on the show, and he was great with his time, and got to do that again. So we're looking forward to this next year, and we'll see what that ends up looking like. And yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, might be a little harder to get Brendan back, but
yeah, that one, I don't think Brendan's gonna probably do that with us again, unfortunately. But
You never know, I guess. Never know.
Yeah, he's a great dude. Like I don't from a standpoint of like would he be willing from like a like just the kind of guy he is, I'm sure he would. I'm more of like, I don't know, like it might be weird to be like, "Hey Brendan, how's it been going since they traded you?" Like,
Yeah.
so-
Might be a little awkward, but, yeah, it's a little different scenario on his trade
yeah.
than
Hopefully
the
he's a
other
World
trades.
Series champion by then, so I'm rooting for Seattle hard.
Well, they'll have to start a little bit warmer or a little bit warming up, I guess, because they've had
Yeah.
a slower start, which is not what the Cardinals have done. Obviously, they've done it's kind of been the tale of two cities, right? The Cardinals expected to be a weaker team have then come out and been 10-8 right now. The Mariners, who are a World Series favorite, are I think 8-11. So obviously, just 2 weeks, we're just barely to the 10% of the season slot, but it's been kind of a fun 2 weeks in a way that I don't think anybody really saw coming.
Yeah. I think to your point, like some people it's always hard to kind of give a like this team's achieving more than expectations anyone because there's always a wide range of people, right? There's
Mhm.
some people that always believe like rose-colored glasses, this team is always going to be good no matter what happens. Like I have people who email me and are just like, if I say anything critical, they're like, there's no way because they're like Michael McGreevy's a future Cy Young Award winner and Mason Wynn's going to hit 45 home runs next year. It's like, all right, okay. But the general fan, I think, was like, yeah, this is not a good team. And like, let's hope for some good vibes throughout the year, but it's probably fifth place. It's probably going to be a pretty bad record this year. They might have a top 5 pick. It's not about this year. And there was frustration and some excitement. I mean, I was definitely in the camp of this is long overdue, and I'm just glad there's some direction. It's not that I want to see the team lose, but I like seeing the team prioritize the things that it's going to take to get back to being who we know the Cardinals to be. So it's definitely been fun to see them play competitive baseball so far. And I think the thing that I take away the most from their hot start is that do I believe that they're necessarily going to be a contender this year? I'd still say no. But the
Mhm.
traits that the club is embodying right now are the things that I think are going to pay off when it's whether it's 2027, 2028, 2029, when they are that kind of team, because when they have the talent around necessary, like I feel like they're playing at a talent deficit right now where um they're pretty thin depth wise. They have glaring holes in different parts of the roster and they have to overcome it. But if they can truly rebuild this and create a really strong roster, but one that doesn't give up, that fights back, that is scrappy, that is willing to run out that ground ball to third base no matter how unlikely it is they're going to beat it out because there's a chance they get on base to extend the game. Like that has that good vibes in the clubhouse, that next man up mentality. Like if that can continue to be true of this Cardinals team when they have the talent that matches some of the better teams in baseball, that's a team that's going to be really dangerous. And so I think that, I mean, obviously the big thing we're looking for right now is can Jordan Walker be who, well, I mean, I think we'd all love him to be who he is right now, but can
Yeah.
he even just be a really good player, a star, who's JJ Weatherholt, who's Mason Wynn, all that. But when I think of like the actual team success and what I'm looking at for the team is holistically, it's more of those attributes right now than is the wins and losses. And then when you get down to individual players, obviously the performance is what I'm looking at. But I guess, is there anything that surprised you, Daniel, about the start so far? Like, is there anything about how they're playing that you're like, I just didn't? I mean, obviously, like the record and whatever, but like,
Mhm.
and obviously Jordan Walker surprised all of us. But
Right,
like,
right,
as a
yeah.
team, is there anything that surprised you? You're like, man, I didn't think they had that in them.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with just 30 calories and no artificial sweeteners. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
You don't wash your jersey during a win streak. You don't switch seats when your team's up big. And you definitely don't shave during the playoffs. When things are working, you don't change them. That's why when you drink Jägermeister, you drink it ice cold. Anything else? Well, that'd just be bad luck. Drink it cold or don't drink it at all. Jägermeister. Damn, that's cold. Drink responsibly. Jägermeister liqueur, 35% alcohol by volume. Imported by Mast Jägermeister, U.S. White Plains, New York.
I think it's the comeback abilities because we've often thought, I think going into this season, we felt like, okay, the pitching staff's going to be iffy. And so when they get in the offense, maybe okay. But if they get down, 5 or 6 runs, that's going to be it, right? That's just pack it up. But, opening day, they turn around a 6-run deficit immediately. and they've done similar things here and there. So I think that's probably, and it goes to your, your ideas there of them having that never give up, kind of fight in them. Just like Tuesday night, when two down in the bottom of the ninth and they get the win gets on with that error. I think in so many times in the last 2 or 3 years, that might have happened, and then the next guy would have struck out or grounded out, or we had that little bit of hope, and it just would have gone away. And then instead, Pozo drives a double, and they tie it up, and then they are able to go on and win it. That just feels like a different team than it did a couple of years ago. And obviously, a lot of players are gone, and there are new faces. But I think that is probably the thing I've been surprised at, is that, for lack of a better word, the vibe has been more positive.
Yeah, I agree. And you started to see pieces of that last year where there were times where I remember having that conversation about, like, man, this team doesn't give up, they fight back, but
Mhm.
it didn't fully last. And I don't think it's as simple as, okay, they got the rest of the veterans out of there and now it's like fully about them. But I do think now it's like, if that last year was the beginning of that transition, it's like, okay, now the like, again, I'm not saying these guys were anti that, but now it is the young guys club. There is no more Arenado, there is no more Sonny Gray or Miles Michaelis on this team. Like, it really is like any of the young guys have to take the bull by the horns and run this. And when you've got a club that is full of players that basically are trying to make their mark in this game for the first time, like, there's really no one that's established that's where they want to be. They're all trying to ascend. Then of course, like, when you're down 9-2, every at bat matters because it's
Mhm.
going to end up on your final stat line, and it's going to end up being a part of how you're measured and valued when the end of the year comes. And then also too, I think they're growing together and they see, like, man, a lot of us, some of us won't, obviously some of them won't be here in a few years, but whether it's because the front office continues to try and extract more value out of this roster, or just because they didn't make the cut. But there's a chance that a lot of these guys are building toward this next core together. And I think there's an excitement from them there too, of like, hey, we can be the face of this team. We can be the foundation of this team together. And so all these games do matter, because sure, we're probably not going to win a World Series in 2026, but what we're doing today might end up influencing our winning era of Cardinal baseball. Like, I'm putting myself in the shoes of those guys in the clubhouse. And so I think that probably plays into a little bit of that never say die attitude, that fight back attitude. Because honestly, like, that's probably how they feel as a team, is that everyone's kind of doubted them, counted them out, said there's no chance, frustrated about the state of it. And so they're trying to prove people wrong every day.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot to that, and like you said, they're constantly being evaluated from the front office as well. And it's it's interesting because, you know, we've talked a lot about, how Ollie's gonna manage this team and all that, but it gives him a little bit of freedom, right? I mean, if Nolan Arenado was hitting 182, you really don't bench him. If Nolan Gorman's hitting 182, it feels you can platoon him with Urias a lot easier. If Palante just blows up, you can move him out of the rotation easier than you can move a Miles Michaelis out. So it's going to be interesting. And of course, again, not even 20 games into the season, it's not a big enough sample size. But as the year goes on, it's going to be very interesting to see if Marmol takes that freedom and uses it in a way that maybe he wouldn't have in the past with those veterans there.
For sure. And I don't, Ollie's here to stay for at least the next few years, and we'll
Right.
see if he ends up being the guy they tap the shoulder of long term. But I do think no one should ever cry for someone that got one of the 30 MLB managerial gigs. It's like, no one's going to feel sorry for you. But he did, like, it is interesting if you go back, and I'm trying to, like, cause I mean, most people know, like, I'm a pro Ollie guy. Like, I like him. I think he can be that guy. I don't think I'm not sold on it. I'm not like, there's no shot, and I don't think he's above criticism. But you'd like talk about a guy who's the youngest manager in baseball, takes over in a very chaotic time where everyone's questioning the Schilt versus Mozeliak stuff. And so pretty much anyone they brought in there that wasn't an established guy, that wasn't like, he's going to be called Mo's guy, going to be the puppet, going to be the guy who's just going to submit to his authority. And that he already had that against him. Then he jumps in, his first task is the 2022 Cardinals, which again, like, manager would sign up for, right? Like, you're not going to complain that you
Mhm.
got that, but it's a weird situation to be like, okay, now I'm leading the club with Albert returning, Yachty's last year, Wayno, like, obviously second last year, but it's like that trio together, Pujols, or Arenado's trying to figure things out. And then you have 2023 where again, I think Ollie's been pretty clear. Like he's learned some things and realized he's made mistakes and has grown as a manager because of 2022, 2023, 2024. But he really was like the like he's the face of over a decade plus of deterioration in the organization that reared its ugly head that year. And so it's easy to point to the manager and say it's the manager's fault. But if you look at the things that are actually plaguing the club that year, it's like, I don't care who was managing that 2023 Cardinals, it was going to fall apart. Like that was the year the house of cards was falling. And if Schilt was there, I don't think it goes all that different. And then you go to 2024, which was basically like the patchwork year where they're like, hey, we're going to try and put a bunch of band-aids on this and see if it works. And that's not his decision, right? Like that's above his pay grade. And then you got 2025, which was the like float in the water year where it's like, well, we're not rebuilding, but we're also not going to go for it either. So just kind of float in the water until Bloom gets here. And then now you finally have the first year where it's like true clarity. Like I'd say, actually, it's the second year, like 2022, you're a contender. 2023 was just this like dumpster fire. 2024, everyone could see right through, like this is not going to get them back to prominence. 2025 is just like, what do you do with that? And 2026, it's like, okay, now you've got a clear direction, and it seems like he's got buy-in from the club. So I'm excited to be able to evaluate him from a standpoint of like it feels like the organization's like for a little while there, it felt like he was being tugged in multiple directions, and now there seems to be a succinct and sustained there's obviously a direction, but they're moving in the same direction together. And so I think it's easier to evaluate a manager when there's not all these extra factors that are like, well, like there's always gonna be things out of a manager's control. But I don't know if that's making sense to you, but in terms of like, it's just tough to evaluate a guy who the expectations of the organization still seem to be what they were before, but clearly the state of the organization cannot sustain that level of winning baseball anymore. And so they had to take that step back, and they finally did that this year.
You know, when you were talking about it there, it made me think about the fact that I think we do deserve to give some credit to John Mozeliak in the ownership, in the fact that it would have been very easy to, you know, make Ollie the scapegoat for 23, right? And just say, hey, okay, that didn't work, we're getting rid of him, you know, and not because he really was, but just trying to avoid the fact that, you know, it had become a mess on their hands. And, you know, I think that the front office under Mo and probably still under Hein Bloom, we just don't know as much, but has always been fairly clear-eyed, optimistic, but fairly clear-eyed about what this situation was. And when they went south, they kind of knew that it's why it went south, and it wasn't having anything to do with managers. Now, maybe they just didn't want to pay another manager at the time. I think they were still paying Matheny and definitely Schilt. But I think part of it, a lot of it was, you know, there was some credit there that they did not take the easy way out, which some teams might have done after such a long and sustained run of greatness, to then, you know, crash and burn like they did. That's oftentimes, you know, a scapegoat type of situation. And it went at it differently, and I think it's going to be better for the Cardinals if they did.
Yeah, I'm also very curious to see, do people I think there's been a little bit of a tone shift with Ollie over the last 12 months, and I'd really say last 6-7 months here. But I was curious to see, like, when Bloom kind of gave him the extension of the vote, like more than a vote of confidence here, just like saying like, hey, he's the guy we're riding with. Now, obviously you could look at it and say, well, he's riding with him in the rebuild years. And so like, how much does that mean of how much you believe in a guy? But I think they clearly understand how important these next few years are. And so I don't think if Bloom had any doubt in his mind about Ollie's ability, I don't think they'd give him an extension. And if he didn't like the guy and didn't think he was capable of leading this team in the direction he wants to go, I don't think he's here. Like the ownership's credit, they have not they've done everything Heim has asked them in terms of investment at the minor league levels, infrastructure, and getting them back to where they need to go, staffing. Like they've not been afraid to make personnel changes and to add a lot of personnel. So I know a manager is gonna be a little bit more expensive than adding a coordinator, but I don't think they would have blinked an eye if they thought, hey, like if Heim's like, Ollie's not my guy, let's make this change here. So I'll be curious to see too, like if this club overachieves this year, or there's clear, like at the end of the year, people feel good about the direction they're heading in, if that changes the overall perception of Ollie, or, which I think is very possible, if that what Bernie would call the Mo stench just stays with him forever, where like people like there'll probably be a section of people that will never embrace Ollie as a manager. And I'm not even saying that someone has to. I'm just curious to see like how much of the general perception of Ollie could potentially turn more positive over the next few years and what it would take to do that. I thought the Bloom getting him an extension from Bloom would do that, but it didn't really seem to move the needle all that much.
I mean, it is always difficult to shake first impressions, right?
Yeah.
And and I think back and we've talked about it some on the show here, but Tony La Russa came in here as a decorated manager, a manager that had been to 3 World Series, won one, and took the team immediately to the playoffs. But by 2004, especially, there was a significant group of fans that wanted him gone. That were flying planes saying fire. At spring training saying fire La Russa behind trailing banners. So it took 2006, and then even after in 2006, by 2011, there were some people that really felt like Tony's time had come. Now, I mean, they had a little bit more respect for him than maybe they had earlier, but they did feel like, okay, this is run its course. Now, obviously, things got better, and he left on a high note, and then, of course, is revered because of the 2 championships. So I think with Ollie, it's just I think he's going to have that kind of cycle too. I mean, as they build up, he'll have a lot more people on his side, but there'll still be people that think they need a new manager, and he wins the World Series, and everybody be on his side until opening day of the next season. And then if he goes to the bullpen at the wrong time, then there's people saying, well, they won in spite of him. And so that is the life of a manager for sure. And so trying to manage that kind of stuff is difficult, but as long as the people in the clubhouse are responding to Ollie Marmol, which they seem to be, and he seems to be managing people very well, that's the biggest thing, especially in today's age where so much of what we would consider a manager's job is now taken over by statistics and front office interns and metrics and all that kind of stuff.
For sure. And so at this point, you need a strong manager who can kind of sift through that. But you also need someone who's able to adapt and adopt those things as well, and then to be able to synthesize that information and make it apply and work for the players in the clubhouse, but also keep their relationships in order too, and get that buy-in. We were talking about it's something I've kind of been playing around with my head at some point too. It's like right now we're in the honeymoon phase with Heim, at least, and everyone, and I mean, I'm right there with it. I'm like, I can't sing his praises enough half the time. I'm like, it just feels so different. It's so exciting, but he's not perfect, and he's gonna make mistakes along the way too. And it'll be curious to see. Like right now, it feels like he can do no wrong in anyone's eyes. Like there's very few things, and that people really openly or are pretty critical of him for. But if you give this another couple of years and they're not back to where they need to be, and even when you get to contention, like we saw. I know the Boston media market's its own animal, but like, does he pull the trigger on the trade? Does he make that big free agent signing? Does he do those things? Like pretty quickly, it's going to become more of a there'll be those jaded fans in there as well. And again, I don't say that at all as like being critical of people for being frustrated, but it is just it's an interesting time right now, going from basically the end of the Mo era where it's like, no matter what he did, it was always going to be wrong. No one was going to like what he does anymore. To the exact opposite, where it's like, no matter what he does, we're all going to find the silver lining of why it's going to be an incredible decision. And so far, he hasn't really done anything that we can really like. Obviously, the prospects he's acquired and some of those foundational changes at the minor league levels, like we're years away from really knowing the payoff of them, and the early returns do seem to be good. So obviously I think he deserves those flowers. But it'll, like you said with Tony, like there was a season where he was disliked. There was obviously seasons he was liked, but then even in the middle there too, like when he's winning World Series or having those 04 Cardinals, I don't think everyone was the biggest Tony La Russa fan during 2007 all the time, or 2008, 2009, 2010. Like there are some rough years there where, I mean, it's hard to remember how critical people can be in those times. And again, not saying it's wrong at all. But I'd be curious to see how long it takes for the honeymoon era to kind of wear off with Heim.
Yeah, you're talking about people not liking Tony La Russa in 27 or 07. That Scott Rowland is in the middle of that. He leads that group. So and it's very interesting to see. They seem to have kind of buried the hatchet, right? They're both wearing red jackets and they interact some. I guess they don't seem to have quite. I think it's probably once you're not playing for Tony, you like him a lot better. And I think even the things that we've seen with Heim that have caused some issue, like not the Nelson Velasquez, starting in the minors or signing Ramon Urias. There were small things, right? There were things like we don't understand it. It's not what I would do, but it's not a huge issue.
Yeah,
And we'll wait and see. So far, it feels like both of those moves have panned out pretty well for Heim too.
for sure. And so, yeah, it'll just be big picture. I'm curious to see how it's all handled, and I'm curious from your perspective too. Like, do you think they're getting a proper credit and too much credit, or not enough credit for the changes and shifts it feels like have been made at the minor league level so far? Like, to me, it's a pretty impressive shift to have made in 18 months. Like, to be reviewed is probably maybe not, like, it's not quite where the Red Sox were when Heim came in and they were pretty much universally seen as the 29th or 30th best farm system in baseball. They had wiped their system out. And it took time to rebuild that. But you're talking about, like, I think Baseball America pipeline, and rankings are rankings, but you're talking about like a 20th ranked system. You're talking about a system that's always getting critiqued by the industry for being behind in terms of pitching development, the hitters that they produce. Like, they can produce pretty good big leaguers, but they can't produce the stars. And again, those guys haven't been produced yet. So, like, we're all holding that with a grain of salt. But to see how the industry has, like, really flipped the view on the Cardinal system so quickly, to me, that's extremely impressive. And I'm curious if you feel like they've gotten proper credit, too much credit, like, or maybe not too much credit, but people need to pump the brakes a little bit, or if you feel like, man, like, people aren't talking about it enough.
I think they've gotten a decent amount of credit for sure. And I think some of it is also going to be, maybe it's a little bit too much credit just because we don't know how these players are going to pan out, right? I think back to that 23 trade deadline, and we thought, oh, they've brought in some interesting pieces, for these free agents that they got rid of, and really, it's only been Thomas Ajayce. I mean,
Well, John King,
Well, I mean, how can you just the only man that came and actually was in the major leagues after that trade deadline? So yes, can't fault that. And John King probably got a little bit more grief than he probably deserved, but still not exactly going to be a legendary Cardinal by any means.
But it is ironic so far. Like, obviously Savants is not having a good year right now, but like the biggest success story so far was the Paul DeJong trade.
Yeah, the one that probably shouldn't have ever happened, but Toronto needed a little insurance. That's been impressive, and I'm going to be very interested to see. I mean, Swanson looks a lot better in his last outing, and I want to see if that continues and going forward. But yeah, I think a lot of people have we are acknowledging that, and that excitement that's coming with this team. Sometimes I think we get excited about these players, and we'll have to see if they actually develop. We also look at it, and that depth's way down there. It's not going to help us for a year or two probably. So those opinions are probably going to be continually revised as people develop or don't develop. But yeah, I think they've done a lot, and I think it's pretty clear how much impact they've had just because of that amazing shift that you're talking about.
For sure. And also too, like, I'm going to be excited to see in the next, what is it, like, you're talking about a couple months here when they have a draft where they're going to have 6 in the top 86, I think it is. You're going to have another deadline where they're probably going to offload more talent, right? Where, like, whether it's maybe Lars Nootbaar at that point is someone that they can move. If not, maybe that's the off season. Like, at this point, Riley O'Brien seems like a screaming trade candidate. 32-year-old or 31-year-old reliever right there. Jojo Romero. Like, they're gonna have more pieces to add even more to the system, and obviously JJ Weatherholt is gonna be graduating here basically by the end of the month. But outside of him, like, maybe Jimmy Crooks graduates this year, maybe Quinn Matthews, but most of their prospects are still going to be within, like, prospect status at that point. And you're going to talk about adding even more talent to the system via trade, via the draft, which I think the biggest part of that too is not that every single one of them is going to pan out. Actually, most of them probably won't. But when you have so many darts on the board, it helps it stick, right? And I can't remember a time. It's been a long time ago, but it's been a long time since the Cardinals have had this many intriguing arms in the system at one time. And I remember it's even probably like the second or third trade, or definitely during the Brendan Donovan trade. I remember people being like, why are the Cardinals acquiring so many pitchers? They need position players too. And I'm like, yeah, they need more infusion of that. But this tells you the state of the pitching in the organization at the moment. And we're seeing at the major league level right now where they just don't have swing and miss. Like they need to develop that internally, but also like how you truly can never have enough pitching. And so you think you have 5 arms, you probably really have 1 or 2. Like you really like by the end of the year, like we saw last year where Roby went down, Jerpy went down, Matthews missed a ton of time. Gosh, I feel like I'm missing a couple other. Tink went down, which always happens. Like there's other arms that went down, and this year you've already had Fitz go down. Dobbins has missed the start of the year. Gosh, someone just hit the IL the other day too, and you're probably gonna have more arms that do that. Roby's still out, Jerpy's still out. Like it's been refreshing for them to stack up on those arms and for them to be upside intriguing arms.
Yeah, it is interesting to see how that's gonna play out, because they're gonna need it. And I guess Dobbins and Fitz are also guys that could come off that list, because I assume they're probably listed kind of lower on the prospect list. Sure. But I would expect, especially Dobbins, to be in the majors, assuming health, pretty soon. So yeah, you're right. I mean, like last year, they had to stay healthy because there wasn't anybody to come up. I mean, that was, people kept clamoring for Miles Michaelis to be released, but they might have done that. I don't think they would have, but if there had actually been somebody to bring up, they might have at least considered the notion. There wasn't anybody. And even now, like I say, Dobbins is it, right? Until Fitz returns from the injured list, it doesn't look like, Quinn Matthews had a good outing this last time, but he's still got to put a few together before he's even in contention for that. So they've got to kind of knock on wood and hope nobody gets hurt.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what they end up doing, like with Hunter Dobbins getting in there, which it feels like this next Friday is when they start that 17 games and 17-day stretch. And so that seems like a time where I don't know if I'd call it a 6-man rotation as much as I would call it they fit in a couple of spot starts in there, and which kind of operates like a 6-man group. And I feel like that's the easy way to get Dobbins into the mix. But then what they do after that, do you option Hunter Dobbins because he wasn't part of that top 5 originally and none of the other guys are down? Like at that point, do you allow, what is it, probably 8, 9, or not even 8, 9 starts at that point? It's probably 6 or 7 starts into the season. Like, do you allow that to be enough runway to say, okay, Palante's going to Memphis, McGreevy's going to Memphis, Leahy's going to Memphis, or do you pull the plug on the Leahy starting experience and put him in the bullpen to try and help an alien bullpen? To me, and I'm curious where you would land on that, I don't think, if they think Leahy can be a starter long term, and not just like shot in the dark maybe, but like they have real legitimate reason to believe in him as that, I don't think you pull the plug to fix the bullpen. That feels like a short term stopgap fix. That doesn't feel like the big picture to try and improve your bullpen in the immediate term. So I wouldn't end the Kyle Leahy experience because the bullpen is struggling. But if they aren't really sold on the idea of it, then of course he'd be a great addition to it, and it gives you the ability to fit Hunter Dobbins in. But I feel like if they really want to keep going with the Kyle Leahy experience, I think it'd be more likely he ends up going to Memphis to be starting depth than for him to end up in the bullpen again. Especially right now when Fitz is down, because after Dobbins, like next man up, I guess, is Quinn Matthews, but I actually don't think he would be. I think you're talking about like Bruce Zimmerman or something, because I think they would probably want to let Quinn bake for as long as they can. And so I don't know. I guess it depends on how frustrated people would be to see Bruce Zimmerman in the rotation versus Kyle Leahy. But I don't know. What's your thought?
6 of one, half dozen the other, maybe. Right there.
But do you think it's important to try and stabilize this bullpen this year? Or do you feel like it's better to keep prioritizing the potential development of Kyle Leahy as a starter?
You know you need fiber for a healthy gut, but do you actually know how to get it? Quaker's been serving up fiber since 1877, with over 100 great-tasting, good source of fiber options to choose from. Whether you like old-fashioned oats, instant oatmeal, granola, or oatmeal squares, Quaker makes it delicious. So good. Get your fiber with Quaker. Shop Quaker's good source of fiber products at a store near you.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys Breakfast Meal and Huntrix Meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Well, I've never been big on the Leahy as a starter bandwagon, but I agree that if the Cardinals are, and they have been, and they seem to be, that it seems unlikely they would let just 6 starts make the difference.
Yeah.
And like you said, right? I mean, you were talking a minute ago about, at the trade deadline, maybe trading off Romero or even or Riley O'Brien. I mean, if you're going to do that, there's not going to be any stabilizing of this bullpen, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's just those guys are not able to be replaced, especially if Swanson has not figured things out. And so, no, I don't. I mean, you're not trying to lose this year, but you're not necessarily supremely focused on winning. So, yeah, I think the priority would be for the Cardinals, let's keep Leahy starting, unless they have seen something in those 7 starts and they say, okay, this is not working. He can't get past 5 innings, and that's a stretch, and this stuff just isn't playing as well here. We're gonna bail on this for right now, or we'll have him here for spot starts, but he's gonna be a long man out of the pen. But I think you're probably right that they would go and send him to Memphis, assuming, and again, this is assuming that Dobbins comes up. It's almost that backup quarterback, right? I mean, we've not seen Dobbins, so he must be perfect. And assuming he comes up and pitches the way we expect him to, then at the end of that, when they're done with the 6 mans, sending Leahy to Memphis makes sense.
Yeah, I love the analogy you said. They're like, it makes me think of Michael McGreevy last year, where it's like we all want to see McGreevy, but then it ended up feeling like the conversation's like, oh, he's the savior, and it's like, well, that's not true either. I just think we want the opportunity for the young arm. But like now we're all seeing kind of like what the limitations are at times, but also, I mean, been impressed by his ability to push through even when the stuff isn't there. Dobbins to me so far is a guy that I feel like I've become higher on as I've talked with different people. I feel like had a better grasp of who he is as a starter, and B, what we've seen in the early returns from spring training and the backfields and what kind of sounds like his stuff looked like, but also what we've seen in Memphis so far. And so I don't necessarily think I would see him as a major upgrade over anyone, but I do think it could be an upgrade. He definitely does seem to have at least a little bit more swing and miss in his game. But again, I feel like if fans are wanting to see more dynamic stuff in the rotation, we're a little ways from that. they're mostly in Springfield and Palm Beach and Peoria right now.
And I mean, I think when we started this season out, we thought, okay, well, by the time Dobbins is ready, Leahy and or Palante are just going to be dumpster fires that have to be replaced. And they've not necessarily been great, but I don't think they've kind of held their own, right? I mean, Palante might be doing it with smoke and mirrors. I'm not going to argue that, but so far he hasn't been maybe the weak link that we thought they would be.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see how it goes, right? Like 3-4 starts from now, one of those guys or someone else could be imploding, or also the injury bug can happen. Like that's been the other big thing for the Cardinals last few years. They just really haven't had starting rotation injuries, and some of that I think is the type of starters they've had. Your Miles Michaelis is less likely to sustain an injury than Dustin May. Like just
unless it's his neck watching the home run goes by. But
that's true. Which also, man, when he got hit by that line, that comebacker against the Tigers, I was like, this dude is the unluckiest player in the world. Like he just, right as he's bouncing around that ankle, I'm like, there's no shot this just happened. So very thankful Dustin May is okay, just for his own sake, and just like watching. I know he's not. The first 2 starts were terrible, obviously, and the second 2 starts have gone much better. But we're not talking about some guy who's going to be an ace here, but it is just refreshing to watch a guy pumping 98 with real movement. Then like another of the kind of old regime mold. So like watching that go down. But yeah, like you said, Leahy and Palante haven't been unplayable. I am a little bit worried. I've been trying to dive in a little bit more on the numbers. Like even in the starts that they've gotten, like there's been some McGreevy starts, there's been some Palante starts, there's been frankly some Liberatore starts. That like, okay, the box score looked pretty good, but the underlying numbers tell you like if they keep pitching like this, it's not going to line up like that. And it not to I feel bad because I feel like we've all piled on him plenty, but it feels like kind of like Eric Fetty from last year, where the first couple months he had the best ERA in the Cardinals rotation, and then 6 starts later he is off the team. And it's like, well, the underlying numbers were telling you this is not going to work, and then it just finally blew up. And there's a part of me that's concerned that the rotation could blow up at some point, and they just do not have a ton of reinforcements there. But at the same time, I could also see, that's the pessimistic view, I could also see Michael McGreevy, like his velocity got back a little bit the last start, and maybe he's figuring something out and he stabilizes. We've seen Andre Palante be good at different times in his career, and so in the rotation, and so I'm not doubting that can happen again too. We've seen Matthew Liberatore be like a borderline number 2 for small stretches, and maybe more like a mid-rotation starter, and so that could happen. Dustin May, obviously last 2 starts been good. And like you, I don't know if I believe Kyle Leahy's going to be a starter long term here, but I'm also intrigued by it. And so, in some ways, I think this rotation, I don't know if it has higher upside than last year, because you did have the Sonny Gray element to it, but it does feel like maybe there's a potential overall higher floor, maybe not higher floor, but higher-ish ceiling to it. But the floor feels a little bit lower at times.
So, and I'm gonna toss you the plug here, because I know you just wrote about it over at the site. But part of that is the fact that this team is playing really good defense, right?
Yes.
I mean, these guys are getting away with some of this stuff because you've got Mason Wynn and JJ Weatherholt and Victor Scott and Nathan Church and all these guys that are going out and getting it, and that's making them look a little bit better than maybe they are.
Yeah, and you have Nolan Gorman right now, who's like tied for second with third baseman outs above average, and it's like, did not have that on my bingo card this year. So yeah, they're definitely getting bailed out by a really good defense at times, and so like obviously if they've been average or below average, like that was one of the things of 2023. Like the defense was, like, we don't talk about it a lot, but the defense was really bad that year, and I think it's part of the reason the rotation couldn't do the rotation was gonna be bad regardless, but the depths it reached at times, I don't think the defense helped them out. I will be curious to see, like, this is something that I feel like Kyle talked about it at Walton Reese recently or something, where I think Brian asked him about Baez playing in center field for the Cardinals. And it's just an interesting thought to be like, are they at some point, will they potentially sacrifice? And it's like with the Ivan Herrera catching side of things, it's the some of these other decisions they can make at times. Are they going to prioritize the development of a bat and getting a player opportunities over the great defense out there? Because at times it does feel like the construction of the lineup, the construction of the roster is trying to maximize their strength, which is their defense right now. Which I get that from if you're trying to make the most of what you have out of the starting staff, you need this defense to be really good. And if you do want to be a competitive team, obviously you need to put up runs, but if you're down 6, 7, 8-0, like it's not going to matter. And so, not that the defense makes a huge deal, but there are some games where clear, like you follow the game and you see some of these critical plays made in critical moments where the game could have broken open, and instead they shut him out that inning. And so, it is nice though that multiple of those key pieces are JJ Weatherholt, where it's like he is the second baseman. So you're not like JJ's not playing because he's a great defender. He's playing because he's a great player. Mason Wynn's playing obviously because he's a Gold Glove level defender, but you're hoping for more out of him. Alec Burleson hasn't graded out as a good defensive first baseman this year, but I feel like eye test wise, I've been pretty I don't think he's been great, but I think he's been better than I thought he'd be, and I think he could continue to get better. The Gorham, the eye test has lined up so far. Jordan Walker, it's still a work in progress, but it's not nearly how the depths it was in 2023 when he was like -15 outs above average. Like that was horrible. And then left field, like if Church is out there, I mean, he's had some snafus recently that are uncharacteristic, but you can see the plus defense there. Jose Fermin's graded out well. Sajasi's done a lot better than I thought he would for being just thrown out there randomly. And then obviously Victor Scott's in center. But at some point, do they potentially get, like, when they feel comfortable with Ivan's health behind the plate, do they start catching him more, even if they don't feel like the defense is up to par with Pedro Pajes? Do they allow a Joshua Baez or Thomas Sajasi to play in center field? Not that Sajasi's bat's been all that much better than Scott so far, but do they make some of those decisions, or do they continue to try and go by the bread and butter of the defense? So far, it seems like that's what they're going to go with, but does that start to shift and change at some point? We'll see.
Yeah, and I think even the fact that they're using Sajasi and Fermin in the outfield is an idea that
true
defense isn't everything. right? I mean, that there are going to be times where they need those bats. Not that those guys are bad out there, but they're not Nathan Church and then of course then when Lars Newbar comes back, then everything gets thrown into the blender a little bit, and who goes down and how that shakes out then too. And we're getting back to that point where it is difficult to figure out how you get everybody on the field, and because of you want Herrera playing catcher if you can, but at some point in time maybe that that he becomes a DH and things shift. I don't know. We'll see. I wrote it this. I was writing on the Substack tonight, and I posited. I don't know how much I believe it, but I posited that the Cardinals are minus 17 on run differential right now. I don't know how important that is for this team, because I feel like this is a team that's going to win a lot of 1 or 2 run games, but they're going to lose games by 6 or 7 runs.
Yes.
Is that reasonable? Do you think that maybe we can't necessarily go by Pythagorean and what this team should be?
No, I think you're spot on with that. I think it tells you their ceiling's limited. Like, I feel like if you're a team that can't beat the brakes off another team, that tells you your talent level. But I think the way they play, also the strengths that they have, like for as inconsistent and frustrating as the bullpen has been this year, like I think we can squint and see a world where, I mean, obviously O'Brien and JoJo have been incredible so far. You've got Soriano, who's been interesting, Graceffo, like maybe Savansa works out, but like if you get strong bullpen outings, you get enough out of your rotation, timely hitting, and incredible defense, you can pull out games that you shouldn't be winning. Or like, and those are the things that are a recipe for a win or a loss. When you're talking about a slugfest, like obviously, like I think they're outnumbered big time, but if they can keep the game to 4-3, 3-2, 5-4 even at times, like that's when some of those little things will add up a little bit more. So yeah, I totally agree with you that looking at the run differential this year, and then probably in turn the Pythagorean, like it's probably not going to tell the story of how many wins they can achieve this year, at least in terms of being competitive. But it's also hard to imagine a team finishing with a great record when they also can't, like when the only way they can really win is when they have to pull it out tight. That's a tough way to win a lot of ball games. So I'm impressed. And again, I think going back to the conversation of earlier, what am I looking for in terms of like how the team's performing right now? I like to see that they have a DNA of when the game is close, they feel like they can win it, and they don't. Obviously, they're going to give close games away. Every team does. But they have the tools and they have the fight necessary to pull those games out. So yeah, I agree with that sentiment.
If you were to, you asked a bit ago who was, what's the most exciting or most surprising thing? What's been the most disappointing thing so far from you, or who?
That's a great question. I think I'd maybe say it's so early, but I think maybe Mason Wynn's bat being what it is right now. And I see the reasons for why it could be better. Like I personally don't think he's 80% below league average. Like I think he can be better than that. Obviously I think his rookie year, he was slightly above league average. But I just feel like every year, like since 2023, it's always been like, hey, Mason's got more in the tank than you guys think. And then it just hasn't worked out that way yet. And so obviously his defense is incredible. But he just continues to not be a positive offensively, in my opinion. And I think he's talented enough to do that. And so, yeah, I think I'm a little bit disappointed about it. Like, I'm tempted to say Yvonne, but like Yvonne to me, I just feel like is a guy that didn't hit in spring training much. Like I'm really not concerned at all about him right now. Like JJ's slump, like quote unquote slump, had him as like still an above league average hitter. Like if a rookie's slumping and getting on base almost every single start still, like I feel pretty good about their profile long term. And I feel like he's going to be fine. Obviously can't complain about Jordan. Burleson's been fine in my opinion. So I'd say in the pitching staff too, like I don't think any of these guys would be world beaters. So I guess the other thing I could say is how bad the bullpen's been at times. Like I thought it would take a step back, obviously, because they did lose Ryan Helsley, Phil Maton, Stephen Matz within the last year. Like that's tough to rebound from. So I thought it'd be more productive, but I'd say at least when it comes to one individual player, I was hoping to see more offensively from Mason Wynn so far.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, again, we've seen some struggles out of Swanson that I didn't expect to when you're talking about the bullpen, and we'll see if he can get that corrected. And I guess the other is I still, I never really held out much hope, so maybe I can't say I'm disappointed. But with the breakout of Jordan Walker, I think just highlights the struggles that Nolan Gorman is still
Yeah.
having. That he's not striking out quite as much, but it doesn't seem like it's improved his offensive game. You're right; the defense has been remarkably better than we thought it would be, but it's still it feels to me like he's borderline playable right now.
Yeah, that I would agree. Like, I think probably the reason why he like Mason to me is a guy that I think could be here for a long time, and so I'm going to be more like I'm going to be more excited and more frustrated when things aren't going well. Gorm, it's hard for me to imagine even if I mean, obviously if he pops off like Jordan Walker is this year, like that's a different story. But like I have a hard time imagining a realistic scenario of how like a good Gorm outcome that he's a part of the core. Like
Yeah.
But I also don't disagree with him getting the playing time. Like I think he's probably on a path toward a trade or leaving a free agency or whatever it is at some point. Like I just don't think he's a part of the next contending Cardinals. But yeah, I'm with you because especially if you go back to camp, it felt like the guy that seemed to be figuring things out a little bit more was Gorm, and Walker was the one who seemed completely lost. And now it looks the exact opposite, right? Like Walker looks like Aaron Judge, and Nolan Gorman is 30% below league average at the plate right now, which I think would be his worst offensive season, of his career right now. So like the defense is at least a little bit of a saving grace there, where not only are you not just getting 30% below league average offense and then 0 or negative from the defensive value side of things. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they don't really have anyone that would be pushing him in the near future. Like I don't necessarily envision Thomas Ajacey doing that unless things really turn around. Obviously, I don't think Fermin or like a Prieto or Ryan Torres do that. There's not really an infield prospect on the way either that I can think of. So I think Gorm's kind of got third base on lock for a while, or at least for the rest of this year. But yeah, we'll kind of see how that goes too. But it is disappointing because even go back to 2023, I know he was streaky, but he managed to have enough of those hot streaks to balance out the really low lights. That you at least thought maybe he could be one of those guys who like the end of this year numbers can look whatever, like they might be 10, 15, 20% above league average, but he's going to catch fire and hit like an MVP for 3 weeks, and he's going to be your worst hitter for 3 weeks. And those guys can be interesting parts of a lineup. Because he's somehow has never really been able to figure that out again.
Yeah, it's weird, and I mean, I don't, whether it's a development issue, whether it's just a guy that he fell in the draft to the Cardinals, and maybe that was part of the reason why there was a little bit concerned of him ever making the contact he needs to. I don't know. I feel like even if he went off in the second half, I think the Cardinals would wind up flipping him for something and saying, we're going to sell high on him. So it becomes difficult to some degree to see him making it past this season. But we'll see. I mean, who knows? Like you said, there's not exactly anybody just banging down the door to play that spot. Josh, we've gone about an hour. Is there anything on the team that we haven't talked about that you would like to mention before we wrap it up?
I mean, we cover a lot of ground today, and there's obviously more we could cover. I'm very interested to see, as we all are, how JJ Weatherholt continues to progress and to handle what he's seen so far. He's been very pull happy to start the year. I don't know how much of that's intentional versus just he's in a funk, but like been a whole lot of ground balls at first baseman so far, which is not what you want to see from JJ Weatherholt. You want to see him pushing it the other way. So that home run the other night, I mean, both of them pulled off a lefty, but then opposite way off a lefty. I was like, man, that seems really nice to watch. And again, I have zero concern about him as a hitter right now. Like, I think he's going to be just fine. Like not just fine as in just a fine player. Like he's going to be A-okay. But I am intrigued to see kind of what he taps into with this. And also I want to see if the defense is real. Because I don't think anyone thought he'd be a bad defender or not even like a good defender at some point. But like Nico Horner is a really valuable player and is barely above league average with the bat. Like Tommy Edman, we've seen put up a 6 B WAR season in St. Louis when he's a league average hitter, a little bit above league average with incredible defense. Like if JJ's an incredible defender at second base, plus with the offensive upside we think that he has here, like we're talking about a really, really, really good player on your hands in St. Louis. And I think I've been especially lately, as I've just thought more about who JJ's profile. Like, I don't know I don't think he has the ceiling to be the number one on a World Series team. Like, is he like that kind of star? But I think he's like a all-star. He can be an all-star player. Again, we're talking about top level outcomes of a player. But if you're talking about he adds that good a defense to that offensive profile too, I don't know if it puts him in like top 15, 20, 25 players in baseball category, but it does up the value compared to what I thought it was before. So again, I'm just interested to continue to follow him, along with obviously what is real of Jordan Walker. Like, did he just turn into Aaron Judge overnight? Because I did try to do some historical deep dive of that recently, and I literally could not find, like, Derek Lee is the closest thing I could think of to someone that had that kind of terrible stretch for 2 years, and even his wasn't nearly as bad as Walker's, and turn around to be a perennial like all-star level bat. Jose Bautista kind of, but his also like he was more of like a league average hitter. Like, Jordan was 30% below league average for 2 years. Like, that just there isn't really historical precedent for a guy turning around to being a superstar. So obviously it's too early to say he's done that, but if he's even an 809, I mean, obviously even 900, but even if he's an 800 OPS guy this year, like, this should be one of the biggest stories in baseball, from a like, this is an incredible thing to follow, seeing a young guy fail as much. And again, like, that's not to like, it wouldn't have shocked me if Jordan Walker turned into a valuable big leaguer, but the depths he reached for a sustained stretch of 2 seasons, you just don't see someone turn around and become a star out of that. So I'm very interested to follow that.
Yeah, I think if we had gotten a season, and I mean, we still might, but even if at the end of the year Jordan Walker had been, 15 home runs and a 260 batting average, and in that area, we'd have said, "Hey, this is now there's something here, right?
Yes.
This is he's turning into at least a solid player."
Yes.
To be where he is right now, it's going to make those numbers look disappointing if that's what he gets to.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, because if he's got 8 now and it ends up at 15, that's going to be there's going to be a reevaluation of him, I guess, to some degree. But hopefully that won't be the case. Hopefully not. Yeah, it's been fun, and I feel like, I mean, I tell you, you just look at Jordan Walker in the box, and he just looks like. He looks more focused. I always felt in the last couple of years he just kind of felt he looked overwhelmed.
Yes.
Just at the plate, he just didn't really feel like he knew what he wanted to do or what he should do. And now he just has that feel of, this is my bat. I'm going to do something with it.
For sure. And I couldn't be more happy for the guy. Like, I'm so happy for him and his family. So good for Jordan. And it's even like you said, the past few years, he's looked so uncomfortable in the box and looked like he's beating himself up and just frustrated and at a loss as well. But it's crazy to me that, like, literally the weeks before the season starts in spring training, he looked like that. So it's like, not even like he went into camp and lit it on fire. It's like during camp, I'm like, man, this might be another rough year. And then for him to come out firing the way he did, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, we continue to say, and we never remember it, but we continue to say, don't pay attention to spring results.
Yeah.
And Nola Gorman, thought he looked good, and not so much. Jordan Walker, had that, like, the real good game like the day before they broke camp, and that was it. We tend to think that matters, and we continue to be proven that it doesn't. So, but we'll never learn.
For sure. All
right. Well, Josh, it's been fun. I enjoy it. Good luck with the MLB columns. I guess that does, writing columns is a lot easier on your schedule than trying to write game stories too.
Oh, for sure. Definitely twice a week doing that versus following the 10 straight road games or whatever. And yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot easier on my schedule. So that I do appreciate that. And again, I'm just so thankful for the opportunity. It's going to be really fun. So appreciate if people follow the work over on MLB.com or over on Dealin the Cards podcast and Redbird Rants. I mean, I'm at a lot of places right now, but I always appreciate the support. And Daniel, always appreciate interacting with you, man. And I do feel like we talked about earlier, like comparing the blog and podcast sphere to other markets. I don't think it's self-serving to say this. I think we have the best in baseball. It's so fun to interact with. There's so many good people. It always feels like there's new voices and new, whether it's podcasts or writing, that pops up. And a lot, I try to tune into as much as I can. from other people's stuff, and it's good, it's fun, and I love the conversation. And that doesn't even include, I'm not even touched the Twitter verse yet, where you just got people who are just fun, like their platform is social media, and that's where they get their stuff out, and it's just a fun community, and so I appreciate being a part of it.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I can't keep up. There are so many shows that I wish I had time for, and I barely have time to listen to one or two. But there's so many good ones out there. So, it was a lot of fun. Next week we have Stage of Stars of Screen and Radio and Viva Alberto's. We have Jake Wood with us next week. But until then, for Josh, I'm Daniel. Good night.
They just won't go away.